Welcome to The Explainer. I am so incredibly excited you're here today because we're going to tackle something almost all of us dream about, taking those half-baked ideas floating around in our heads and turning them into a real, breathing business. We're diving deep into the incredible framework of the lean startup. So if you want to finally launch an idea without wasting years of your life or entirely emptying your bank account, you are in exactly the right place. Let's get into it.
You know, the average person comes up with 6 to 7 business ideas in their lifetime. Let's be real, you've probably got one, actually scratch that, you probably have like 5 of them just chilling in your notes app right now, waiting for someday. But most people never do anything with those ideas. And it's not because the ideas suck, it's because we all experience this brutal paralysis. Like, where do you even start? Do you need a website, a co-founder, a fancy logo? Should you just quit your job right now? It feels exactly like your brain just opened 50 tabs at once, absolutely none of them are loading, and so you just end up doing nothing.
90%. Yeah, 90%. That is the brutal truth of how many startups fail. But here's the secret. They don't fail because the founders were lazy or even because the ideas were inherently bad. No, most startups fail because they follow a completely backward, old-school plan that sounds super smart on paper, but is actually a massive trap.
To make sure you don't become part of that 90%, here's our playbook for today. We're going to cover 1. Why traditional startups fail. 2. The minimum viable product. 3. The build, measure, learn loop. 4. Validating your hidden assumptions. 5. The power of pivoting. And 6. Actionable versus vanity metrics.
All right, starting with section 1, why traditional startups fail. The old way of doing things is just fundamentally broken.
Think about the old school way for a second. You get an idea, write a massively long and fancy business plan, try to raise money, hide in a cave for 6 months coding and building like a mad scientist, and then you launch, only to wait for traction that literally never comes. It is devastating. You spend years building something nobody wanted in the first place. The lean startup way is completely different. Building a product is no longer the hard part. I mean, with tools today like Shopify, Notion, Webflow, and AI, you can build incredibly fast. The real challenge today is building the right thing. And you do that by building fast, testing immediately, and gathering real, actual feedback.
Which brings us right to section 2, the minimum viable product.
This is the crucial concept, the minimum viable product, or MVP. Look, when you have an idea, you are not supposed to build the whole product right away. In fact, you absolutely shouldn't. An MVP isn't about launching a perfect, bug-free app. It's just about getting a tiny signal, a reaction, a yes or a no, to see if you're even on the right track before you waste months of your life. It is the absolute simplest version of your idea you can use to just test the waters.
Let's look at how the pros did it. You know Dropbox, obviously. Well, when they started, they didn't write a massive back end of code. They faked it. They literally just made a short demo video showing how Dropbox would work if it existed. People loved it, they signed up for the waitlist, and the idea spread like wildfire, all before the actual product was even built. Or look at Zappos. The founder, Nick Swinmurn, didn't build a massive warehouse inventory system. He just walked into local shoe stores, took photos of the shoes, and posted them online. If someone bought a pair, he ran back to the physical store, paid full price, and shipped it himself. Massive sales, a completely faked back end.
And I think this brilliantly illustrates our main takeaway for this phase. Don't build a castle, build a tent. Absolutely love this metaphor. Set up a tent fast, see who walks inside, and listen to what they have to say. It's all about learning, not finalizing the whole shebang on day 1.
Moving on to section 3, the build, measure, learn loop. This is the startup heartbeat. This loop right here is the absolute heartbeat of the lean startup methodology. You build something small, you measure how people use it, you learn from that data, and you repeat. Sounds super obvious, right? But most people completely skip the measure and learn parts. Imagine you're baking cookies, and you whip up a wild, chocolate chili lavender combo. You hand it to a friend, they take a bite and absolutely hate it. If you're a traditional startup, you just go bake 100 more of those exact same cookies. But if you're a lean startup, you ask why they didn't like it. They say it's too spicy, so you dial back the chili and try again. That is build, measure, learn. The company Buffer did this perfectly. They just put up a landing page with pricing plans. When users clicked, it just said coming soon. But that measured intent. It told Buffer exactly what people were willing to pay for before they built a single feature.
Okay, on to section 4, validating your hidden assumptions, figuring out exactly why it works.
Building an MVP is kind of like opening the curtain. Validating assumptions is checking if the audience is actually clapping or just politely blinking at you. If you set up a candle stall at a farmer's market and get sales, that's amazing. But why did they buy? Was it the scent, the price, the packaging? That why is your assumption.
Dropbox, for example, was testing the massive assumption that regular people would even understand what cloud syncing was just from a video. And look at Airbnb. In their early days, bookings were frankly terrible. They assumed the website design was the problem. But their hidden assumption was completely wrong. They finally realized the actual bottleneck was that user listings had dark, ugly, blurry photos. So the founders literally grabbed a camera, knocked on doors in New York, and took professional photos themselves. Bookings skyrocketed. They validated that better photos equaled trust. You must validate your assumptions by observing how real humans actually behave.
Which leads us to Section 5, the power of pivoting. Shifting early and smart.
Listen, a pivot does not mean giving up. It just means making a really smart shift based on what you've learned. Look at Twitter. It didn't start as Twitter at all. It started as a podcast platform called Audio. But when Apple added podcasts to iTunes, Audio realized they were in deep trouble. They looked at what else their tech could do and pivoted to microblogging, a literal billion-dollar left turn. Or Instagram. Their original app was called Bourbon, and it was honestly a cluttered mess of check-ins, future plans, and photos. Users ignored everything except the photo sharing. So the founders dropped their ego, cut all the fluff, and focused purely on what users loved. That pivot created Instagram as we know it. The lesson here? Fall in love with the problem, not your initial solution.
Finally, Section 6, actionable versus vanity metrics.
All right, here's a reality check for us all. Far too many people get totally obsessed with vanity metrics. Likes, followers, page views. Listen to me. That is just dopamine candy. It does not mean people are actually buying or loving your product. If you cannot make a clear business decision based on a number, it's a vanity metric. You need to focus entirely on actionable metrics, things like conversion, retention, CPA, and churn. These numbers actually drive decisions and tell you the true health of your business. Let's break a few of these down.
First up, conversion rate. Let's say you have 10,000 website visitors, but only 100 people buy. That's a 1% conversion rate. Believe it or not, that small slice is totally normal, but tracking it is so incredibly powerful. Dropbox once tracked their conversion rate and realized their super tech-heavy homepage was just confusing people. So they replaced it with one clean, 2-minute explainer video, and signups jumped 10% overnight. They spotted the problem simply because they watched their conversions.
Next is retention. Do people come back, or do they completely ghost you? If tons of people sign up for a free trial but leave after a week, you don't have a business, you have a leaky bucket. Think about Duolingo for a second. They are utterly obsessed with retention. That's exactly why that little green owl haunts you with daily reminders and streaks. They gamified the experience to keep people coming back because high retention is the absolute foundation of a real sustainable business.
Then we've got cost per acquisition, or CPA. This right here separates the pros from the panickers. If you spend $500 on ads and get 25 customers, your CPA is $20. Now, if your product sells for $200, you are winning. But if your product only costs $10 and you're spending $20 to acquire that customer, well, you aren't running a business. You're basically just burning money with style. You absolutely have to know this math to scale without sinking the ship.
And finally, churn. Look, churn is the silent killer. It's the rate at which people cancel or unsubscribe. Companies like Netflix track cancellations like hawks. If churn spikes, they immediately dig in to find out why. Was it a price hike? Bad content? Annoying bugs? Low churn means people genuinely love what you do for the long term. If your churn is high, something is deeply broken in your user experience.
Wow. Okay, we've covered a ton of ground today, so let's lock it all in with a rapid-fire mental checklist to make sure you're ready to build. Number 1, build a tent, an MVP, not a mansion. Number 2, master that build, measure, learn loop. Number 3, validate your assumptions by observing real human behavior, not by overthinking in your room. Number 4, check your ego at the door and pivot early when the data screams at you. And number 5, track actionable metrics and completely ignore that vanity dopamine.
So I want to end our explainer today with a real challenge for you. What is the absolute simplest version of your idea that you can test this week? I don't mean next year. I don't mean when you finally learn to code. I mean this week. Stop overthinking. Stop staring at those 50 open tabs in your brain. Drop your MVP idea down in the comments below and take immediate action. Go build your tent. Thank you so much for hanging out with me on The Explainer today, and honestly, I cannot wait to see what you built.